Tell me about what's going on here at the moment in the UK.
What's going on is that by now, more than 3 years after our vote to leave the European Union, we should have left, and our recalcitrant government, which has blocked and obstructed every single possibility of leaving the European Union so far, had hoped by now that they would have persuaded the British people to change our minds. But we haven't changed our minds. We're more determined to leave the European Union than ever, and our Parliament is looking more and more isolated and foolish and out of touch with the people of this country. And today they are trying to find new measures of stopping us leave the EU, and more people are behind Boris Johnson and his government, because increasingly they look like they are taking seriously the obligation to take this country out of the EU so that we become a free and independent nation again.
The way things have been going for the last 3 years since the vote, do you think it's kind of made it look a bit of an embarrassment to the rest of the world?
Well, possibly, yes. I think that people in this country probably thought that we were a less corrupt and more democratic country than we appear to be today. Certainly our Parliament looks highly corrupt, completely co-opted by the European Union and the way it uses public money to infiltrate institutions, control media, control the news, control what people are taught in schools, and tell everybody that the European Union invented fresh air and food and all of these things, which it didn't at all. And of course international travel and cheap flights and what have you. It didn't invent any of those things. At the beginning of the First World War there were 50,000 Germans in London. People have always travelled abroad in Europe and worked in Europe. The EU didn't invent that. It likes to pretend it did. So yes, the government is out of touch with the British people, and we still want to leave. We want to leave harder than ever, and hopefully it looks like our Parliament is being forced to face up to that reality, and we finally have a government that looks like it may even deliver it.
Do you think that it will be out by the end of October?
I sincerely hope so. We could leave today if we had a government that was determined to do it. There's no reason that we shouldn't. All we need to do is actually put in place the acts, repeal the European Communities Act 1972. We have complied with Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. So we've done everything that we should have done and need to do to just leave. So we could leave immediately. So why wait? But yes, the date has been set for October the 31st, and I'm hoping that on October the 31st we will see us really leave, and that will be a huge celebration for very large numbers of people in this country, even people who voted Remain and have seen over the last 3 years just what a bunch of little gangsters the politicians in our Parliament here and also in Brussels really are.
Theresa May wasn't able to do it. Will Boris?
Well, Theresa May wasn't able to do it because she didn't want to. In fact, she deliberately tried to scheme every possible way of avoiding doing what the people voted for. If you had a general election and one party won it, and then were not allowed to form a government for 3.5 years, you would be seeing, probably real trouble, real civil unrest, real anger, and people saying that this wasn't a democratic country. In this case, we had an election in 2016, and they have done just that. They have refused to allow us to leave. Theresa May lied to her own cabinet. She's cheated this country quite disgracefully. I'm thrilled that she's no longer in power. I warned about her on the 28th of June 2016, before she was even Prime Minister, because there was talk that she was going to stand to be Prime Minister, and it was obvious from the referendum itself that she was not a supporter of leaving the European Union, and it made no sense to me that we would actually have a Prime Minister who disagreed with the referendum that we had. How could such a Prime Minister properly defend the rights of the 52% of people who did win that vote? How could she do it? She spent 3 years defending the 48% and the last 40 years of betrayal of this country and its independence.
Thanks for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot. Great to talk to an Australian.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks, heaps.
Good stuff.
Have a good one.
Good stuff.